welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, of course, we are going to dive into House of the Dragon Season 2. I have been waiting for this for 2 years. We are going to talk about it. So I think the way that I'm going to cover House of the Dragon is I'm going to do an episode per episode, but I kind of want to do these as more like spoilery chit chats. So fair warning, there will be spoilers ahead. If you have not watched the episode A Son for a Son, definitely watch that one first before popping on here and chatting about House of the Dragon. So I also, just before we jump in, want to give a shout out to all of the movie nerds. We have passed 100 subscribers on YouTube. I am blown away. I am blown away by you guys. I thought we might make 100 by the end of the month. I didn't realize you guys were going to help me make 100 by like the end of the Father's Day weekend. I was so excited to see it happen and excited to see us pass that mark. And I love that we are building this nice little movie nerd community and just like finding our people, you guys. It's so cool. So to jump into House of the Dragon, we have gone about 10 days from season 1 to the opening of season 2, which I know is a little bit interesting to imagine because like Harry Collette, the guy who plays Jacaerys, has grown his hair like leaps and bounds in that 10 days. I did not even recognize his character when we opened up on Winterfell, and the scream that I scrumped, you guys, when they opened up on Winterfell and you could hear Kragon Stark start to talk and he sounded so much like Jon Snow. I was so excited. Because I feel like for the most part in season 1 of House of the Dragon, the majority of everything going on has really taken place like in King's Landing, in a couple of other locations, but it was very like close to the vest. We weren't getting as much jumping around as you did get in Game of Thrones as far as the characters being in different locations. And so it was really cool to kind of get to go to a little different location this time, which is back to Winterfell. Even though I think this is the only time that we will see Winterfell in this season, or at least they've already said this is the only time we get to see Kragon Stark. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I was very excited to see it. It was nice to kind of get to pull back from King's Landing and from Dragonstone and actually meet some new characters and see some new sights, see the wall kind of in its glory days, essentially, where you're still sending, like what was it, 1 in 10 kids, I think 1 in 10 boys up to the wall to reinforce, and they know that there's something out there. And I loved the part when they're standing up on the wall and he said, when I think he was talking about Aegon the Conqueror. I could be wrong about which king they were talking about. It could have been Jaehaerys. But when he came and brought his dragons and he was like, that it's something more than just the wildlings when the dragons will not cross the wall. And that just gave me chills. I was like, yes, it's something much more than the wildlings. Even though like the way that like the final night and stuff was a little bit disappointing in Game of Thrones, it still is like super exciting to kind of see the history there. And that's what I love so much about House of the Dragon, is like just getting to kind of go back and see how we ended up where we were when we started Game of Thrones. It's a fun sort of history lesson for everyone. So from there, we did get a lot of more heartfelt and really sad kind of moments. I, of course, was over the moon to see Princess Rhaenys again. She wasn't in this episode for very long, but man, does she like when her and Daemon were talking and he's like, no, you have to ride out with me. Like, we're going to do this thing. And she was like, were that you were king. Like, you can't command me, don't try and step to me like that. And I just love the energy that she brings. And she's just such an effortless badass, she just always makes me happy when she's on screen because she's a good person. I think she's a good and likable character, but she has like that strength to her. Whereas other characters like Daemon and like Aegon and you know, like they have that sort of twisted bit of their personality where you know they're willing to do some pretty shady things. And I feel like Princess Rhaenys, even though I'm sure she gets into some stuff later in the season, it's like, you know, she's coming from a place of loyalty and not a place of like just being demented, you know, and I adore her for that. But we also got to see Rhaenyra obviously going in search of whatever potentially might be left of Luke. And we get to see her like find part of his dragon wing. It's found by some people that after it's washed up on the beach. And she, of course, goes down with Syrax to sort of see that. And a moment that I don't think, I mean, you see it a little bit, but I don't think it's really driven home for that scene, is that it's Rhaenyra on the beach, like mourning her son, but her son's dragon is also Syrax's child too. So it is essentially two mothers like on the beach mourning their children and mourning that loss. And it's just such a touching thing for me that I feel like it really kind of brings home her viewpoint or her anger, I guess, or you can see where that comes from when she gets back to Dragonstone and she's like, I just want Aemond, just bring me Aemond, like I don't care about anything else. I want revenge for my child. And the fact that like Otto Hightower and Alicent and everything, that like Aemond went and really just chopped apart a boy, right? And I don't even think they did anything. Like they didn't say anything to him. They didn't reprimand him for that. It's just like, oh, you've done this. You know, it just proves, it like drives home what a terrible mother Alicent is just right out of the gate. Like she's such a horrid person. And so of course her children have become horrid people. And I never was the type of person that thought like Alicent was just this innocent and sweet person that's being corrupted by her father and listening to, you know, I think she always was jealous of the differences in what she was able to do and what Rhaenyra was able to do and how much more freedom Rhaenyra had in some aspects and how that didn't come back on her in the way that it would have if Alicent were to do the same thing. And so I think she's always been sort of like a little bit shifty. And so, of course, her blooming into like just full out queen biatch is not surprising. It's not at all surprising either that her and Sir Criston are an item now because he's a little biatch and she's queen bee. So, of course, they fit together perfect. I hate them both. I really wish. And I was talking to someone online about this because, of course, I have to like log in to threads and like chat with people about House of the Dragon. But I was talking to somebody about Sir Criston and I was like, listen, I know we're not going to get it, but what I would give for like an entire episode, just 40 minutes of Sir Criston Cole just being tortured until he inevitably meets his demise. Like, I just need to watch that man suffer because I hate him so much. And that speaks volumes really to the great work that the actors are doing here. Like, you know, Olivia Cooke and Fabian Frankel, that I just freaking, every time Sir Criston Cole comes on the screen, I'm like, I just hate your face. And if I could crawl in through my TV, I would punch you in your throat. Like, I just hate looking at you. So you know they're doing fantastic jobs because we all cannot stand them. We all hate them. I don't know anybody that's Team Green. You know, I'm sure they're out there. But I feel like it's hard to justify being Team Green because they just are so awful, you know. And not that Team Black isn't, because I know that this episode left us in a really horrific way. We got to see blood and cheese play out on screen. And I will say, yes, they have changed Blood and Cheese from the books. It is a lot more tame, I guess I dare to say. That it doesn't sound like that is the right word for it, but it's a lot less horrific, I feel like, in the show than it was in the book series. But I do know we are operating on a different timeline in the show than we were in the book series. Like, Helena and Aegon have 3 children in the books by this point, and there are only 2 in the show. Like, the youngest son is not born yet. And so, of course, they were going to have to change sort of how that scene played out because really a lot of it was dependent on there being multiple children, like the 3 children there for her to kind of pick from, I guess. And so they changed that here in that she didn't have to choose which of her sons met their end, but we do kind of see her obviously telling them, blood and cheese, which one was the boy from which one was the girl. And that in and of itself, like knowing what they were going to do and having to give up one of your children either way is going to be traumatizing. But I don't know that any of us were ready for it. Like, even though they didn't show it in detail on screen, you still got like the sound effects. And I do wonder, like, I do sort of question when she grabs her little girl and she's going in search of just like help or somewhere to be that is safe. There is this moment, and if anybody knows, because I don't remember this moment, I don't know if this is just a show moment is my point. When she's like walking through the hall and she sort of stops and it's like she's getting some sort of vision or some sort of feeling. And then she changes her direction and goes and finds Alicent and Sir Criston Cole together. And I wonder what that moment was, or if it was just her being like, no, if I go to my husband, that's not safe. But if I go to Alicent, that will be safe. I don't know. You guys are going to have to let me know what you think that moment was. But man, I don't know. I don't know how I can prepare. Like, I feel like I'm bracing myself for the rest of the season because I'm like, this seems fairly tame of an episode. Like, a lot of it was more emotional until the very ending, obviously. But a lot of this was more like emotional. It's more of what's happening, the aftermath of where we ended in season 1. And so from here, it just goes into bloodbath, it just goes into horror. And so I'm just like bracing myself, like, please hold it together. Like, I'm praying that there won't I know I can feel it right now that like one of my episodes for House of the Dragon on the podcast is just going to be 15 minutes of me just like snot crying, like a dragon is going to die and I am just going to cry. I'm not ready for like what is inevitably going to happen this season, but I will say I think it was a good start. I'm not a huge fan of the new like tapestry opener. I liked sort of the map a little bit better. I think it is stunning. I think the artistic bit of it is amazing. Like, I really love what they did there, but I really like being able to see the map and being able to see where everybody is and like kind of what we're looking at in terms of where the show is going to take place. And so I kind of miss that. But other than that, I'm ready. I am so ready for this season of House of the Dragon. I'm over the moon for them to be back and for all of our characters to be back that we love so much. So those are kind of my talking points and thoughts on the first episode of House of the Dragon. Please let me know what you guys thought if you have watched this episode already. Subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.